go. So how do you feel about the wage-led growth model?
Okay, so I think that in New Zealand that wages are too low. I think there is opportunity for those wages to increase. I'm still not entirely sure about how that should happen. I think my preferred method would be that the businesses themselves would see it as an opportunity to increase wages, and even though that's a cost for them, looking at it in terms of lower turnover, staff turnover, less training costs, that sort of thing. The example being the warehouse, who have recently been in the news, and they have announced that they are going to pay their staff more. I think it's based on experience. So what they're trying to say is that if an employee hangs around for a couple of years, they're now more valuable to the warehouse, and so around about $18 an hour, which is sort of the equivalent of what the living wage at some of the figures that people have been talking about. So that benefits the warehouse. It may also benefit them in terms of consumers, having a more positive perception of the business. And then coming out of the US is a sort of a similar thing where the fast food workers are wanting big pay rises, about basically doubling their pay. There's actually going to be a national fast food strike on August the 29th. Yet to see how successful that will be, but a lot of the fast food workers are going to walk off the job for that day and say they want $15 an hour, that's a big increase for them. But obviously it would mean that they are a lot more able to afford the basics, necessities of life. And it has been said, I mean, it's very debatable, but some people have said that if that happened, then Big Macs, as a prime example, the price of a Big Mac would go up by about 25-30 cents in American cents, so it's about 50 cents in New Zealand terms. And so then really it's just a case of whether consumers would be prepared to do that. Some people, according to the law of demand, will buy less Big Macs.
Yeah.
But some people who maybe have slightly negative opinions of McDonald's for various reasons may then decide to go to McDonald's more because they think the workers are being paid more. And it's a difficult thing, because if only one of the businesses does it, if only McDonald's do it, the question is, are the other businesses going to come on board, or are they going to stay with their low wages as a way of competing? But I sort of get my feeling would be that if a big multinational corporation did it, that would tend to drag the wages up, rather than the other way. And actually in Australia, the McDonald's workers, most people know Australia is a high wage economy, and they make the equivalent of US $14.50 an hour. And they're still profitable in Australia. So it's not like it can't be done. Right, so all of this is, I guess, saying that I'm in favour of higher wages, and I would much prefer it if that happened through the private sector, if businesses were able to recognise that there are advantages to them.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of growing the economy, there's two ways of looking at it. There's the wage-led growth model, which says everyone gets higher wages and more spending, etc. But unfortunately, I think from my opinion, there's also the other way of saying, in order for businesses to compete, they need to be profitable and therefore drive down wages as low as possible. And it seems to me in New Zealand that was sort of more in that part, whereas I think more of a shift to higher wages would be desirable. I don't think the government should be, if I understand the Singapore government increasing everyone's wages by 20%, I think that does nothing for inequality.
Yeah.
But if a minimum wage of $15, I used to be against that, but I think the more reading I do, I sort of think that that's actually, that would be an appropriate amount, and then businesses can then build on that to offer more. Actually, one of the things that changed my mind was this book here, which you can read if you want. Basically it's about a woman who was she was a highly paid worker. She worked at a university, or a journalist, something like that. But anyway, she decided to try and live for a year on the minimum wage in the US, and she did a whole number of jobs, and it sort of chronicles her struggles, and just in terms of affording rent and the basics and that sort of thing. And what it sort of ended up with was saying that the minimum wage, we can do it to death in economics in terms of higher wages, less demand for labour, so therefore the minimum wage is not a good thing. But she sort of concludes that in the end that perhaps the minimum wage is a moral issue rather than an economic issue, and that if you're paying people to work for 40, 50 hours a week and they still cannot afford the basics, and of course in America it's a little bit different because they're one sickness away from major medical bills because they can't afford health insurance, then that takes it to another level. Luckily in New Zealand we've got a free health system which helps that. But so, yeah, I think that I've sort of moved from a purely economic point of view to thinking actually higher wages are desirable and less inequality is desirable.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, I think a wage growth model is a good idea, but I think that it needs to be implemented more at the bottom end, and it needs to be implemented reasonably slowly as well. Singapore, 20% per year over 2 years. I don't think we could necessarily cope with that for all jobs, but minimum wage going up by 20% and then more slower increments after that. I think that there'll be a lot of people upset with that, but I think probably on balance that it would be beneficial.
Excellent. And do you think if New Zealand were to move away from competing on price, so low wages so you can compete with lower prices for exports, do you think, or just whatever in general, do you think if they were competing with higher wages, it would make them more productive or innovative? So they have to find another platform to...
Yeah, I think if you look at New Zealand's situation, obviously a massive part of our export is the dairy, right? And I don't think that the wages are an issue in the dairy industry. And then other primary products and forestry and fishing. And we tend to be sort of price takers in those markets. And I don't think the wages, an increase in minimum wage, lower wages, I don't think that would have a significant effect. I think it's more likely to have a bigger effect on manufacturing.
Yep.
And we even see obviously businesses have moved to China, and some businesses are moving away from China now because as their labour costs start to increase, they're thinking, well, maybe it's there are other places we can manufacture that, or we can compete on other things. So I don't think New Zealand can compete on price, and I don't think it does compete on price really anywhere. We've got the manufacturing base that we used to have that was protected by tariffs. That was the only way we could compete. We're never going to be able to compete with China anyway.
Yeah.
So therefore, in terms of New Zealand's situation, I would say competing on prices is not a big deal, and having a higher minimum wage, lower wages is not going to have a significant effect.
All right. Thank you very much for your time.